Ambassador Helen Cross had made the terms crystal clear during humanity's first address to the Galactic Council. Her voice, calm and measured, carried the weight of an entire species as she delivered what would later be known as the Terra Doctrine. "We understand our reputation precedes us," she had said, standing before representatives of 300 civilizations. "You've classified our world as hostile, our people as dangerous. We accept these designations. But understand this, we have one absolute, non-negotiable requirement for peaceful coexistence. Our children are off limits." The Council had nodded in agreement, treating it as a reasonable request from a species seeking integration. Children were sacred to most civilizations. It seemed like common sense. The Zephyrian Confederacy hadn't seen it that way. Captain Marcus Kane stood on the bridge of the U.S. Retribution, watching the orbital bombardment of Kepler 442 be reduce another Zephyrian military installation to glowing slag. 3 months had passed since the Zephyrian attack on New Geneva Colony, and humanity's response had been swift, systematic, and absolutely terrifying to the galactic community. "Sir, we're receiving another surrender offer from the Zephyrian High Command," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, her voice steady despite the magnitude of destruction they were witnessing. "Denied," Kane replied without hesitation. "Continue with primary objectives." The Zephyrians had made their fatal mistake during what they believed was a routine territorial expansion. New Geneva was a frontier colony, lightly defended, economically insignificant, and strategically worthless. It should have been an easy conquest for a species that had dominated 3 star systems. They hadn't bothered to check the colony's demographics before attacking. New Geneva Elementary School had been in session when the orbital strike hit. 237 children, ages 5 through 12, had been vaporized instantly along with their teachers. The Zephyrians had broadcast their standard conquest declaration 15 minutes later, expecting the usual negotiation process to begin. Instead, they had awakened something that the galaxy would later refer to as the Human Protocols. "Status report on the 7th Fleet?" Kane asked. "Admiral Chen reports total destruction of Zephyrian defensive platforms around their primary shipyards," Rodriguez replied, consulting her tactical display. "No survivors." "And the 10th Fleet?" Admiral Okafor confirmed successful elimination of all Zephyrian colonial governors and their military commands. "The civilian populations have been relocated to refugee ships as per the Geneva Conventions." Kane nodded. Humanity had learned much from their own dark history. They didn't target civilians, but they had redefined what constituted a legitimate military target with surgical precision that left other species in awe and terror. The bridge's communication array chimed with an incoming transmission from the Galactic Council. Kane gestured for his communications officer to accept it. "Captain Kane," came the familiar voice of Council Speaker Veltar. "The Council formally requests that humanity cease all military operations against the Zephyrian Confederacy. We are prepared to negotiate reparations." "Speaker Veltar," Kane interrupted, his voice carrying the cold finality that had become synonymous with human military communications. 3 months ago, Ambassador Cross explained our one requirement for peaceful coexistence. The Zephyrians chose to ignore it. Captain, surely the destruction of their entire military infrastructure is sufficient retaliation for what was essentially a territorial dispute. A territorial dispute? Kane's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried more menace than any shout. Speaker, they killed our children. They targeted a school. This isn't retaliation, it's education. On the tactical display, more Zephyrian military installations flickered out of existence as the human fleet continued its methodical dismantling of an entire civilization's capacity for war. The Council demands that you explain your strategic objectives, Veltar pressed. Kane stood, his reflection ghost-like in the bridge's viewports as another Zephyrian world surrendered its orbital defenses. Our objective is simple, Speaker. We're ensuring that no species in this galaxy will ever again look at a human child and see an acceptable casualty. But the Zephyrians have already surrendered their military leadership. The Zephyrians had a functioning war machine capable of targeting civilian populations. Kane corrected. Past tense. We're removing that capability permanently. The transmission fell silent, except for the background chatter of fleet coordination. When Veltar spoke again, his voice carried the weight of dawning understanding. Captain, the Council is beginning to comprehend the implications of your actions. You're not seeking to conquer the Zephyrians. You're making an example of them. Now you're learning, Kane replied. For 60,000 years, species in this galaxy have made war by targeting the vulnerable to break the strong. You attack trade routes, civilian infrastructure, population centers. You calculate acceptable losses in terms of innocent lives. Another Zephyrian fleet surrendered, their commanders apparently choosing survival over the honor of their military tradition. Humans don't calculate acceptable losses when it comes to our children, Speaker. We don't negotiate. We don't compromise. We don't show mercy to anyone who crosses that line. The galaxy will see this as excessive. The galaxy will see this as instructive. Kane cut him off. Every species watching this broadcast is learning the same lesson the Zephyrians learned too late. There are lines you don't cross, and consequences you can't imagine. The final Zephyrian military installation fell silent on the tactical display. Their entire civilization's capacity for interstellar warfare had been erased in 72 hours. Speaker Veltar, Kane said, his voice returning to a more conversational tone. Please update the galactic diplomatic databases. Add a new classification. When dealing with humans, their children are not civilians, refugees, or acceptable targets. They are absolutely sacred, and anyone who harms them will discover exactly why the rest of the galaxy calls us Deathworlders. As the U.S. Retribution set course for Earth, Kane reflected on Ambassador Cross's words from 3 months earlier. She had been right. Humanity had one simple requirement. The galaxy was finally beginning to understand what happened to those who ignored it.